Hey folks, just one small correction before the show starts. At one point, I said that this game does not run on an iPhone, when in fact, I went back and checked afterwards, and it does for the most part, aside from a few minor things like the map. But I just wanted to, before the show started, make that correction because I was in fact wrong about that. But without further ado, let's start the show.
This is a prison.
Hello and welcome to a second episode of Downloadables. My name's Max, and this week we're going to be talking about a game that I really love. It's an online game called Die2Nite. That's Die2Nite with a 2 in the middle of it. And you can find it at Die2Nite.com, and the developer is a company called Motion Twin. And with me talking about this game today is the lovely and talented Mr. Bo Hindman of Massively.com. How's it going, Bo?
Hi, good. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. So you talk about this game a lot on Massively. You had quite a few articles on there about it, and one recently too, a really good one.
Yeah, and I get some gruff for it because it's it's almost a pseudo MMO, but. The good thing about Die2Nite, and we can get into this if you want, is that the skeleton framework of it is basically an MMO. It's just smaller numbers. It's 40 people in a town instead of 400 or whatever. So
yeah. So I guess we should explain probably briefly, because I forgot to do this on the last podcast at the beginning, of what exactly the game is. We should probably say I never know. I mean, I guess you call it an MMO. I never really know whether or not to call it an MMO tonight, or an MMO or not. But it's basically kind of a survival horror-y game, but it's that in like a text adventure framework, but you're working with 40 other people at a time.
Right. I think whenever I reference a game that's a little unusual, for example, I do not call Minecraft an MMO, and a lot of people have given me gruff on that, saying, well, but you can host a server that has 200 people on it. Is that not an MMO? And I'm like, yes, but there's not an official hosted server. So, it's technically, I mean, Minecraft is kind of in the same realm. Like I said, the framework of it, basically how the game works is when 40 people join a town, at 5 p.m. Eastern time, New York time every day, the site actually literally shuts down to represent zombies attacking your town. And each day, you have to hopefully have built up enough defenses and stuff to survive the zombie attack, you know. So, for example, I remember that last town I was talking about. I was there for 8 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the really big towns get up to like a month and stuff, like the pros.
Yeah, like I'd have to go back and check, but I think the town the first I was a couple of seasons back, but the furthest I got into it, I was in a really good town once. It was at the beginning of the season, and we got up to like maybe 15, somewhere between 15 and 20 days, and it was pretty awesome. Like, the further you get into the game, really, it's one of these games that just kind of the excitement builds every day the longer you're able to survive.
Yeah, I mean, each day you're guaranteed to have more zombies attack. So, for example, the first day that 40 people arrive, when the zombies attack, you might have 50 zombies. And what it'll say, everybody will go into the watchtower and look, and it'll say, okay, 50 zombies are coming. And then your defense points have to be at least 50 or whatever. It's pretty simple. But where it starts to get complicated is when there's literally 600, 700, 800 zombies coming, and your defenses, I mean, you have to find the priorities. Like, you have to agree, okay, let's build this defensive structure because it gives this kind of, you know, and you always have these smart Alecs in the town, which is what I wrote my article about recently, that think they know everything, telling everybody to build certain defenses that end up not being the proper ones, or they get mad. And, you know, it's like the Stanford Prison experiment, which is what I wrote about, where people started to really take these roles on that nobody assigned them. You know what I'm saying? Like, somebody took the role of a leader, and another person took the role of a follower, and like, I always just take the role of a guy who goes out. I just go out and scavenge a bunch and just keep putting stuff in the bank. That's generally what I do.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely and they kind of formalize not necessarily the roles, but the duties in the game by the different classes that they have. And you're a scavenger, I'm usually a builder. Like, I usually stay safe inside the town and just work on building projects whenever whoever the leader or group of leaders decides, okay, we need to build this. I usually just throw all my action points into there. And I guess I should explain that the game works on an AP system, action points, and you get 6 of them every day, and you're limited to however many action points you have. So you have those 6, but then you can go and drink water once a day, and you get your 6 back from that. And then if there's food in the bank, you can eat food, and that'll give you kind of a variable amount. Some food will give you 6, some food that's cooked will give you 8, and some, I think there's alcohol, and then there's also drugs, which can do anything from really mess you up to give you tons of AP. And and the alcohol also make you drunk and make you talk really funny in the town forums, which can be kind of funny and annoying at the same time.
Yeah, the first time it happens, you don't realize why your speech is messed up when you're typing, and it's because of that. It's World of Warcraft, I think, was one of the first games I experimented or saw that in. Was you would drink something and you would type and the chat would come out funny, and you're like, oh wow, the game would actually do that. But yeah, once you gain those AP, generally though, the general rule is you get 18 points a day, with food and water, but there's variables there. Once you get those points, now what I like to tell people is the reason I go ahead and describe it as an MMO with a little asterisk on it,
Yeah.
It's if you took the systems of Die2Nite and let's say you put a 3D game in there, like 3D avatars that you controlled with your arrow keys and everything, it would be like you would have a 3D town and you walk out of the gates and you go to an area and you start to, let's say you'll see a pile of junk like you do in Zion, that game Zion, however you say it, or Fallen Earth or something like that. And so you right click on it with your 3D model and you click scavenge and it takes 2 hours to do, let's say. And so your character goes through the actions and maybe finds a spring or something good for the town. And, even if it was done that way, everything would match up to being an MMO except for the fact that it's limited to 40 people. So the mechanics are all MMO because everything is very persistent. Your character literally when you log out is still technically in the town or outside of the town. So your character stays on the map.
Yeah.
With a persistence. Your actions can actually persist throughout the game. You can find an item and drop it somewhere in the world and it stays there forever until it's destroyed or picked up or whatever. So there's persistence there. So other than the 40-person limit, kind of like a Minecraft server, it is basically an MMO. But I'm getting to the point that I'm getting, and luckily Massively is flexing a little bit on this. Our editors are very good about, they're trying to be flexible about the definition of MMO and covering games that are maybe just multiplayer games like MOBAs and stuff, because that's where the industry is going. MMOs are very tiny part of the industry. So they're cool about us covering, they want us to cover MMOs pretty much exclusively, but, if something comes up like Die2Nite, for example, that's MMO-like, or if I have a game that's semi-MMO-ish, I'll cover it to talk about the mechanics and how they could be applied to an MMO. So Die2Nite fits there. But once you get those points, though, essentially you're spending those points wisely. And I'd like to say also that I do some building as well. But my preference, for a long time I was a tamer because the tamer has a dog with him.
Yeah.
And he can send that dog back to town. So it's kind of like you have more inventory space. So you go out in the wild, you get a bunch of stuff, and then you empty your backpack by sending the dog back to town with your stuff, and then you can continue to go.
Yeah, it's a little bit like the, I guess it's not a very good comparison, but it's somewhat like like if you were a hunter in World of Warcraft and you would have your animal that you tamed and they fought with you, and I guess if they were able to carry stuff with you, which is kind of like Torchlight.
Well, Torchlight, where they can send stuff back to the town or whatever. That's a possibility too. But and it's basically like that. But one thing I found about the tamer though is he's as good as anybody else at hiding out. So I started to enjoy the scout because the scout could find himself surrounded. I mean, you're basically moving on a square, on like it's depends on the size of the map, but let's say 40 squares wide by 40 tall or whatever.
Yeah.
So you move to the next square and that's 1 AP point. So you're moving in these squares,
So you really have to plan out whenever
Yeah.
I'm going outside of the town, I check, I go to the town gates section of the game. I look at the town map, I zoom in, I check, what everything is looking right, and I very precisely plan out, because I'm not subscribed right now, so I can't get any of the extra classes, but I very precisely plan out my journey just so I make sure I don't run out of AP. Because if you run out of AP and you get stuck outside of town, one, you're probably going to die, or two, you're going to have to go on the forums and bug somebody to come bring you back in, and that's a waste of their AP to get your butt back inside.
You know what I've done before is I've actually literally just donated a hero day to a player that was stuck.
Oh, that's
and just
smart.
I was like, here's your hero day. Now teleport your own butt back to town. And if they couldn't figure it out, In fact, that town that I was in for 8 or 9 days, it was the 9th day coming up. We were so excited because I had just killed that smart aleck guy. The other guy had killed himself. He was a player who kept calling everybody noobs and stupid, and then he just dehydrated himself. That's how noob this guy was. Yeah. He just made a newbie mistake, but he was just one of these arrogant guys. So once he was gone, and then once I killed off the ghoul guy who was a jerk, we were like, yay, and we were having a blast. But in our discussions, we forgot to close the gate.
Yeah.
And in came a bunch of zombies and killed over half of us, I think. I'm not sure if this town still went around, but the cool thing about, like I was saying about you mentioned the hero time, you're not subscribing right now, is those classes are only available to those heroes. To those subscribers, I should say.
Yeah.
But the subscription, this is another reason, there's so many reasons I like Die2Nite. Their subscription service is brilliant because you can buy 30 days of time, but it only counts down per in-game day. So each day is literally, let's say if you're in a town and each day, you pass one day, that counts down one of your subscription days. But if you die or if you quit or whatever, those days don't continue to, it's like right now I have 10 hero days left, for example, on this subscription, and I bought that a long time ago, because I play maybe once, one town every month or something.
Yeah, you can play sporadically and not use your hero days. And so I guess what we should say is that kind of the fiction of this game is that you are a lost soul, basically. You are literally a soul, like a little floating ball of light, and you, in this, hellish wasteland. And in order to play the game, that soul inhabits a, flesh and blood body of a survivor in one of these god-awful towns. And that's when you start using, if you're subscribed, that's when you start using your days, and you take on a persona of a particular one of their classes. I think they have something they're up to 6 or 8 classes now.
Yeah, I gotta reincarnate, but...
Yeah, they're constantly, one of the things I love about this game, they're constantly updating. From the time I started playing, I think back in 2011, the game looks completely different, and it has been vastly improved. They're always updating the game and always making it better. The dev team on this does a fantastic job. They address complaints very well.
Yeah, Twinoid, the publisher, or Motion Twinoid is like their kind of their game service.
Yeah.
But if you go to Motion or twinoid.com/games or whatever, just go to their games section. They've got this little virtual shelf of the games, and most of them are kind of real casual. There's whatchamacallit, Dino RPG is a little more it's pretty much an MMO, but Galaxy 55, if you haven't tried that, it's like Minecraft organized, but in space. Like you actually fly to other people's planets, but they're working on it. So I really like how I like their service. Basically, it's kind of like a social network, and it's casual games and stuff. So supposedly they're doing pretty well. I don't know. I'm not, I haven't talked to them as much.
I'll have to go check out those games. But yeah, they're hopefully people. I should definitely be subscribed to this game because I talk about, and I have been before. I'm just not right now. But
you don't have to be to enjoy it.
The thing, yeah, I know, and that's the great thing about their subscription service is that you can get a perfectly awesome experience out of this game by not paying for it. But if you do pay for it, then you get these extra layers added on top that make the game just that much more fun, I think. Mm-hmm. And they do a great job with that. And
it is, I think this is another thing I'm going to write about, not to get off on a topic or whatever, but I've been talking about buying power, or selling power, which is going to happen a lot more MMO throughout all of gaming. It's happening. EA just talked about it. I'm going to write a new article about it. The players have got to be okay with it. And generally, I think players are okay with it because obviously it's making a lot of money. So, but in Die2Nite, I think their hero service kind of is buying power, kind of. But I think the reason people don't have an issue with it is because you're cooperating with other players. So you're not necessarily competing, but it's pretty competitive as well. So, a hero definitely has advantages, but you're right. You can play absolutely for free and have a ton of fun,
Yeah, it's, I think it's better than, because it started out as a free-to-play game. This obviously isn't something that they've tried to monetize that way, the way, Star Wars or any of these other MMOs. They had their system in place, and it's a very well thought out and well implemented system.
Yeah. I wish them the best of luck. I think that I could see them getting more into different ways to monetize it, but the subscription service is just a good model, period. Imagine if you could play a quote-unquote normal MMO and it charged you only for the time that you were in there, kind of like the Chinese pay for WoW. They pay for it a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
It's pretty brilliant if you think about it.
Yeah. One of the probably the thing that I would really want most from this game, though, because it's such a I guess I'd call it like an event game where you need to be there at certain times to do certain things. Like if you're stuck outside, you have to be there to get your butt back inside the gates of the town, or you're probably going to die.
Right.
Or if you have to be there to close the gates, or you have to be there to do any number of other things to get them done, or else it's bad news. Because it's that way, and it's only on desktops or PCs or whatever. It would be real, and I think it's a Flash-based game. There might be some HTML5, but I think it's mostly Flash-based because I know I can't play it on my iPhone. They need an app. They need an app for this game.
Well, that's what I was thinking before, but I've recently, though, I don't know if I played it in Chrome on my but I played it on one of my tablets. And I think it was my Nexus 7, which of course does not allow Flash as well through, Chrome on the, but it's been a while. I'll have to check, but they do have an app. They have a couple apps, but there's an official one, but I think all it does is allow you to chat or check the form. It doesn't allow you to really do anything.
Yeah,
but
it's called,
I completely agree, though. It's a perfect game, a candidate for that. Because I think the only real Flash area is the map. I think everything else you can run. So the map loads in Flash. And for a long time, probably last year, maybe even before that, they were having such issues with the Flash map or the little map loading in Chrome that every time I wanted to play it, I'd have to load Firefox or Internet Explorer. And I thought I was like, no, that's bad.
I wish they would have, first of all, it would open the game to so many more players because it would be a free app. They could just put it out for free on iTunes and whatever Google Play or any of the Android stores. And, it would open the game up and it would just, it would make it that much easier to play the game because you're saying what time the hordes come. It's right now. I'm looking at it right now. It's 41 minutes until we got to close our gates. And say I'm not at the computer right now. I'm out doing errands or at school or at work or something. I'm like, oh shit, I gotta. They told me I was closing the gates today. I gotta get into the game and play. And you can't do that, but if you had it on your phone, you just go to the app.
Even just a basic app would be awesome. Yeah. Maybe if they limited it to just doing things in your area, let's say if you're outside, you could only scavenge or whatever, you couldn't move necessarily. I can understand something like that, but it reminds me of, I was just looking on Massively, as we said that when Puzzle Pirates announced recently they're going to go ahead and go for a mobile version, iPad, I believe. I don't know if it's going to be Android or whatever, but anyway, and how, one of the comments in that article and some of the comments I've heard before and the general thought process is, why has this game that is absolutely perfect for tablets not already been ported to a tablet? It runs in Java on the desktop. It's like puzzles that are perfect for touching the screen with, and Die2Nite's one of those type of games. It's perfect for a little tablet or phone where you could go boop, boop, boop. But I think they would have to really redesign the UI because when you look at it, it's a little bit, it's real heavy in text, and they could probably tweak a lot of that with some drop-down menus and stuff to make it a little more efficient. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And they have. The UI has definitely been been changed since the earlier versions of it. But yeah, it's text heavy. But I mean, it is kind of you do everything through text, and like one of the reasons I really like this game is some of their kind of lore justifications for things, like the forums. You have to, or it is highly encouraged in each town that you're in, that you use the forums extensively to kind of organize and, you know, make sure that everyone's on the same page. And the way they justify that is that the forums look like a little radio. So
yeah,
basically, you know, every citizen has a radio and they can tune into it at any time to talk to anyone else. And you go on there and there's the posted threads for the construction, the bank, and everything else. And then anyone can make a thread and start saying like, hey, we need to do this, or hey, we need to kick this person out because they're ruining the town, or whatever.
Yeah. Have you been shunned before?
I was shunned. I know I was shunned my first time in the game because I had no idea what I was doing, and I just pissed people off because I had no clue. But I think for the most part, I try and be pretty much a team player. I try not to piss anyone off.
Well, I've had a couple complaints here and there, but that last town that I wrote about, that was the town where the smart aleck know-it-all guy said, all right, whoever put action points into such and such project, I think it was, I can't remember, Portal Lock or something, everybody complained against that person. And he said it was such conviction that all these, because there's frankly, I don't know this for sure, but I can guarantee there's a lot of younger players, teenagers. Yeah. Because teenagers flock to free games. They don't want to pay for crap, especially kids who have grown up on the internet. You know, they just don't. Yeah. I've talked to developers who have told me this. The kids will refuse to pay for your game if they can get away with it. And so there's a lot of younger players. So they just obeyed this guy because he was a great player. He had a lot of knowledge, but he was just a jerk. So people just fell in line, like in the Stanford Prison Experiment. And I had, I think, 6 complaints against me. Not because I put points in that thing. I mean, I even put just a few points in that project and realized, maybe this isn't the best project to put points in. And it ended up getting built. And I got 6 complaints. And of course I didn't tell anybody this because I don't want people to know if I have 2 more, I'll be shunned. It's because then somebody would, troll me and vote twice, 2 other people. So, and then I got and then after I killed the ghoul kid, he was like, I'm a ghoul. But he started a thread, and this is what's great about Die2Nite, is he started a thread saying, all right, I'm going to name your name and what you did wrong in my opinion, and you tell me your story. And if it's cool, I won't eat you. But if I don't like your story, he was basically playing as jury and executioner, which I thought was kind of just awesome.
Yeah.
It was fun to see, although it was, I wanted to punch the guy. I mean, it was cool that that's the kind of play it allowed you for. And so I was like, no. So I was out of AP. There was a Twinoid 500 milligram, whatever you call it, in the bank. Somebody stupidly had put into the bank. You can take it and it gives you 8 AP back with no negative side effects. I think except for, if you take one more drug, you'd be hooked. But yeah. So I popped that sucker. I killed him 5 AP because it's pretty easy to kill a ghoul. Your chances are pretty high.
Yeah, I think you have, the ghouls are like very new to the game with the last update, and I think they just take one hit and you kill them.
Yeah, you can attack other citizens and stuff, but so I was like, no, I'm not going to allow you to act like this. So I killed the kid, and I responded to the thread. I said, and I try to role play sometimes. It's like I found a note in his room naming all of you on the list, so go rob his stuff, And I got one more complaint. I got complaint number 7 for aggressive play. Which I thought was hilarious in this game. I didn't even know they had a complaint for aggressive play, Yeah, so
my favorite. Let me see if I can find it here. My favorite, because they have a number of different ways you can complain about someone. There is theft of multiple objects, excessive water consumption, insults or behavior, blockage of construction sites, sabotage of expeditions, never goes outside, which. I mean, I've gotten before, but then I have to go on the thing and explain, hey, look, I'm a builder, that's why I don't do. Selfish play, which is probably the most common. Minimal participation, aggressive citizen, keeps too many items for themselves. And my absolute favorite, which I try and use whenever someone's just being complete psychopath, is community extremist.
Oh, that's awesome.
One. Yeah, community extremist.
Well, what's fun is you really have to understand psychology, or you really begin to understand psychology. And as somebody who's written about games and held a blog for years and years now, since 2002, I've received comments in some way. Well, heck, I was in bands for most of my life, and the crowd would often troll us. You know what I'm saying? So when you understand the psychology of a troll or somebody who thinks he's the badass in the room or whatever, the one of the best ways to really to make that person crack in Die2Nite is to issue a complaint against them, because it's anonymous. And from what I understand, in you know how you gain abilities in your hero mode?
Yeah.
I checked before I issued a complaint, because I didn't want to issue a complaint against his hero, because he was a really high, he had been playing a lot, and I didn't want him to be able to see who issued that complaint. So I checked the hero abilities. I said, okay, I wonder if if you gain this ability at some point. From what I could tell, you don't gain the ability that the complaints are always anonymous. So I issued the complaint for him being like, I don't know, maybe it was extremist or something. I don't remember. And if you do that, a lot of times those type of players will get really angry and go on the forums and talk about it, and you can start to pick away at their psychology that way. And it's not. I never insult people. I never troll somebody. I never bring real life into it. But I do use the mechanics to kind of wear people down if they're being jerks. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think probably the forums are definitely a double-sided sword in that way, because I think the best thing that you can do in this game is go on there and have conversations and talk your way through how to survive over the course
and be
of
cool.
Days. But you gotta be cool about it. You have to be calm. You have to have constructive conversations. You can't go on there and start insulting people and be just crazy and, like this last town it sounds like you were in, these crazy people. I don't think I've ever had a town quite that bad, frankly. I've had individuals in towns like I had this one guy, and he started a thread at the very beginning of the town and said, look, you're all going to hate me, I'm going to get shunned, but I'm doing what I think is best, and I'm saying it the way that I think it needs to be said. And yeah, he was, he eventually got shunned a couple days into it because he was acting like a complete jerk. He wasn't necessarily trying to sabotage anything, but he was just being extremely rude. And I got fed up with it. I complained about him, and enough other people got fed up with it too that they did also. But one of my biggest problems with this game, though, is that it's good to go on the forums and have the conversations, but there are the few people that want to be leaders, and they have it's in some ways it's just like any other game where people like to min-max it. They know, they have their spreadsheets of how the defenses stack up and what you need to plug in at what day and under what conditions, and they say, okay, we need to do this now. We can't do anything else, and that annoys the hell out of me. Like I can't stand that kind of stuff.
Me and Leela were talking about this, and you're absolutely right. What I wanted to do, or what I still want to do, is to have a Massively article or an article, even on my blog, a daily diary, and start a player-hosted town, a private town. But of course, I have to get to that level, right?
What level is that?
It's pretty high up there. You got to play a lot. So I sent an email, and maybe I'll hear back from Die2Nite about it. They can maybe beef my account up. In this community, that's what you call a press account. I would use it just for the sake of the article and then ditch it, like I do it with our press accounts. Generally, we play them only when we're going to write the game. Write about the game. So let's say if I've got, like Battlestar Galactica Online, they gave me a $200 ship. I only use it when I'm streaming or something. It's for press uses. It's not for, hey, I'm playing this weekend, I want to go jump.
Right. So
it's one of those type of things. I thought, well, maybe I'll get a press account, and they could just for the sake, I could start this town. Then I thought, no, I'll find a player who has hosted them or can host them, and then host a private town, announce it in the article, and get all the people from Massively and friends like you, and try to get those people first, like the people I know personally, and then keep a track of the days. And if it lasts until the next week's article, cool. But if not, just write up the diary and have it kind of be like a survival guide. It'd be kind of fun. Leela, the point is that, speaking of what you were saying, is Leela said, well, the problem with that is you're going to get some guy who's going to say, all right, yeah, okay, I'll host a town. And then he's just going to start yelling at all these people who have never played the game before, your readers, friends. And so this is what happens with gaming, and this is what I don't like as well. I don't mind somebody, and in fact, I completely understand somebody becoming an expert at a game, like the best sniper in, some shooter game, or the best star pilot, or whatever, I don't mind the min-maxes. If that's what you enjoy, that's great. But the problem is that if I don't want to play a game that is, it's kind of what happens to sports. It's what's happening to esports. They become such a science that there's no real character left in it for me, you know. And so that's what I was worried about.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel about it.
Yeah.
And go back to what you were saying about hosting the town, I think I knew that you could kind of start your own thing, but and I'm probably making this sound really negative, despite the fact that I love this game, but one of my annoyances with this game is that it's really hard to play with a group or a guild or with friends. They don't quite make it that easy, I think, unless you have your hero days going.
Yeah, you do your coalition thing.
Yeah, and that's not exactly simple to figure out either.
No, and that is a shame. On one hand, I appreciate the fact that you're the spirit of, all right, you're thrown into a town with a bunch of weirdos, just strangers, and you've got to get along to survive, or at least survive to survive. I like that spirit of it, because that's kind of how it would be, quote unquote, in real life in a way, you know?
Yeah.
But and me and Lita talked about this as well. She said, you know, I'm going to have some friends maybe play it and try it out. I said, well, heck, let's just get on Skype, plan the town. I'll get on free accounts or whatever, or pay for a hero time, whatever, and jump into the same town and travel together into the same, just murder
Yeah.
Have some fun. Private towns, and I've asked this actually on Twitter, and I think for the email, but asked them on Twitter, asked Die2Nite, why don't you just allow us to pay for a private server or a private town? And they said, oh, that would kind of defeat the spirit of it or something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but you would make a ton of money probably. I mean, could you imagine if you could pay $40 or something, host 40 friends, for as long as it lasts? I would love that. I'd give anything for that.
Yeah, because, I mean, like any other MMO, it's gonna be a hell of a lot more fun when you're playing with your friends. I mean, that's why people have their guilds, and, you know, why they get on voice chat, and people want to play with their friends. Like, you know, I don't play the Old Republic by myself. I get on Skype, and I just double team it with my friend, and that's how I play MMOs. You know, there's something to be said for the whole, you know, being thrown into this hellhole with a bunch of random people, but I think, you know, it's just an equally valid experience to go into a town with a bunch of your friends and to figure it out and to, you know, succeed or fail on those merits. I think that's
I'm wondering if they'll ever change that. I mean, I'm going to keep it's called the mayor power, and if you're looking at your soul, because I'm not reincarnated right now, if you look at your soul, it'll tell you how close you are to mayor, and you're probably very far away. I think it's like in the thousands of points.
Oh, yeah, I'm only at 92 points right now.
Yeah, I'm in like 200 and something. I've played, no, I don't play even every week. I'm at 210 points, and I've played what I consider a lot. Actually, yeah, and I correct myself as well, even without being reincarnated, and for those who don't know what this means, basically, I haven't joined a new town yet. I can still look at my soul, which is my character sheet. And as heroes, you unlock skills, and right now I've unlocked omniscience, which means I can see the details of every citizen in the town directory. And as you play more, you unlock these skills, and there's a whole bunch, and actually it does not show you where mayor's at, but I looked it up, I think, on a wiki, and mayor is pretty far down there. So I thought, well, shoot, maybe I can get a press account, or maybe I can do something, because I'm be writing about the game. And I thought, well, I'll find a player. And I went on the forums when I wrote the article, and I talking to people, and this one guy, he's done some really big stuff in the community. He's done like his and her versus towns, where they had all female players and all male players playing each other. Cool. Yeah, see who could last longer and stuff. And he said, oh, I'll do it. And then I thought, well, then Lita brought up the point, well, you know, you got to really test these people. You don't want somebody who's going to be kind of mean. Yeah. You know, because then you'd have to be like, it would suck to have to kick out the host of the town for your article because he was a jerk. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I'll keep playing and hopefully get to mayor. But if anybody knows any tips on that, that'd be cool, because, I mean, the most I've ever seen in a town is probably 8 or 9 days, and then what I do is I forget to log in one day.
Yeah, then you're screwed.
I mean, I've survived. You know, outside a couple times now in the wilderness. I'll just camp, and I'm a scout, so I think that gives me bonuses. I'm not sure. Just, you know,
it does.
Yeah, and then I'll have, you know, and with a hero ability, sometimes I'll just zap my way back to town or whatever. But I mean, I've survived, I think, a couple times now. I'm trying to check my little achievements here to see where I was last man standing once.
Yeah, I've gotten that one a couple times. That's
that one's
a pretty
cool.
Prestigious one.
Yeah, I love that one.
And one of the cool things is too, I don't know if it's last man standing.
I'm looking.
It might be last. Yeah, it must be last man standing, because I think if you get that achievement, they actually gift you 1 or 2 days of of Hero Days, which is, or at least they used to. I don't know if they do anymore, but I know I've gotten that at least once because I got a really rare distinction, and that was pretty neat.
Yeah, I was tempted for the 6-month subscription. It's a little pricey, but because you can get that pre-war camera, that's like I bet it's like now it has a little 3 next to it. If I'm seeing that icon correctly, maybe I'll ask on the forums or whatever, but I wonder if you can use it only 3 times because it's with you forever, or if you can use it 3 times per game or town. And my other question is, does it recharge? Does it literally stay with you forever? Or I'm sorry, actually, does it take up an extra slot of your inventory as well, or do they give you an extra slot just for it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that's like a hero.
Yeah. If you basically pay for 6 months of hero time, you get this pre-war camera. You know how in MMOs or games you can subscribe longer and earn, like you save a little money because it's cheaper. They want to encourage you to pay for more time. If you pay for 6 months, you get this pre-war camera. And it says it's poorly calibrated flash could surely get you out of desperate situations by blinding the zombie. So it's another extra backup if you're stuck somewhere. And it says it's permanent. It cannot be dropped. It's a professional tool. So being called a professional tool like my Scout's cloak, I think it would just be something there. It wouldn't actually take up the inventory space.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Pretty cool. I mean, I've actually been tempted for the 6-month subscription just to get that. But then my problem, and this is how Die2Nite works, the worst enemy in Die2Nite is always yourself.
Yeah.
If you take your time and stuff, you can really survive, even in a bad town. Or at least be one of the last to die. But I always kill myself somehow. I forget something. I get stuck somewhere. That's what I like about it. But
yeah,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Like there are some towns where you are one of the last people to survive, and you just feel like complete badass. Because I remember in one of the towns earlier this season, it was going all right. I think we had made it to like day 7 or 8, maybe. We were, if you make it to day 10, you're doing really well. We didn't quite make it there, but we were doing pretty well. And I think someone left the gates open one night, and so half the town got wiped out, or more than half the town. And so everybody was like, okay, well, that's it. We're going into, crazy mode. Every man for himself. Because if we get down, I think, under a certain amount of people, it might be half, then it just goes into like, the danger zone or whatever. And it's pretty much every man for himself, and they release a lot of restrictions on house building and all kinds of other stuff. So I logged in late that day when that happened, and I was like, oh shit. So I had no materials to build at my house. There was nothing. So I took a bunch of food and water from the bank and one of those, some kind of, defensive item. And I went out into the wilderness. And I survived out there. I think I survived for like 2 or 3 days out there. It was incredible. Everybody else, cause I remember the last day I was surviving, I posted on the forums, and I said, am I the last one here, or is there anyone still left in town? And one guy posted, he was like, nope, I'm the last person in town. So
oh my god.
It was pretty amazing. So yeah, I mean, and that was not the case when the game first came out, it was either town or bust. You couldn't survive out in the wasteland, but they've really made some improvements where you are arguably just as safe surviving out there if you beef up your defensive position as you are in the town, and it's pretty neat that way.
Well, I've kind of fallen in love with my new thing, and it is 2 things: is going out into the wilderness and trying to find ruins and stuff. And if you've upgraded your watchtower and your maps and stuff, you can actually see where they're at on the map before you go out there. So I'll actually try and get to one, even if I waste all my AP just to get there and camp, to maybe try and find an object. And a lot of times when I do make it out to one, I'll actually get the object and then use my hero return just to rush back to town with it or whatever. And then my other thing I'm falling in love with is if somebody's being a jerk on the forums, and I don't mean just that loosely, like if they're really being a terror, I'll do everything I can to get rid of that person. I don't know how or what or where. I'll vote against them. I'll tell them the wrong thing. One guy was writing on the chalkboard. You know how you can do that as a hero?
Yeah.
He thought he was the boss, so he started writing on the chalkboard instructions for everybody. So I would go in there and just change 1 or 2 words here and there. So he told everybody go outside and something like go outside and don't camp or something. I was like, go outside and eat. Or go outside and drink. I can't remember what but I would put little words just every time he would change it. I would change a couple letters or a word. just little things to crack away at their psychology. I just really, and it's not being a troll, but it is kind of being a troll. It's only, I only do it to people who are being jerks because, like I said, with a lot of young players in this game, a lot of young free players, people have to understand the psychology behind it. And I didn't grow up on the internet, so I don't know this. But as a young person who doesn't want to pay for anything, you're really concerned with like, those young players are really into like, drama and kind of, talking about, like it's high school. It's really strange. When I posted my comments or my article on the forum, almost all the responses were, oh, don't worry about the drama, and it's not a drama, like concerned for the drama. And I was like, no, I didn't say anything about drama. I'm not in high school. I was talking about how fun the mechanics are. And you realize that a lot of these players now, I've noticed over, as Die2Nite's gotten out there and seems to have gotten bigger, there's a lot more younger free players who really, enjoy the social aspect of it. And I'm wondering if that might be one of the reasons that they don't want to just allow people to pay for a private town, is that all those free players wouldn't have any more fun because they wouldn't be able to have their drama, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's a weird, I like Die2Nite because of the psychology. It's really fun to see people crack under pressure in text. Like they start freaking out in text, like 4 exclamation marks, like rescue me, exclamation mark. Had a lady do that in the last town. Oh my God, open the gates. And a guy said, and we had the portal lock, which if you lock it, I think 20 minutes before,
it doesn't open back up.
It will not open back up. And somebody locked it really early, like 15 minutes before. And she was like, oh my God, you're so stupid, just ranting about it. Not horrible, but just pretty horrible. Like you could see she was freaking out on the keyboard. And the zombies come, we log in, and she's like, oh, I survived. And she walks right back in town, and hi, everybody. Like, it was like she had this freak out moment, and then once she survived, everything was back to normal. It's just funny what it does to people,
Yeah. Yeah, you said you like it because it's, because of the psychology of it. I like it because, and I know this gets thrown around a lot, but it is, and I don't normally, I don't play, Darkfall or whatever the silly hardcore MMOs are, but this is kind of a hardcore game because
it's very hardcore.
It's you're dead and you can start again, but you have to. It's basically like losing all of your gear in EverQuest or whatever. You start again in a whole new town and you basically start over. And it's people who are looking for hardcore games, they want to play the big 3D MMOs, but they should maybe check this out because this is a very it can be kind of rough on you.
I think it does more for you in your imagination. Your imagination is always going to be better graphics than any graphics you're ever going to see. I mean, I really believe that in 100 years when we have completely where games were surrounded by the game, we're able to walk around like on a holodeck type thing or whatever. Books and stories will still be, people's brains will still want to do the imagining. I mean, that's not taken away from, like Darkfall or other graphics heavy games. I enjoy those as well, but there's just something fun about, but the how scared you get when I gotta go home and log in real quick because I forgot or what, that kind of thing. That's the power of a game like Die2Nite, and it's just basically text and a few pictures.
Yeah.
So pretty brilliant.
Yeah, it is, and if anyone's listening and knows about this, I'm surprised that I've kind of looked around a little bit. I'm surprised there's no Die2Nite fan fiction because this offers such a really awesome idea for just saying like, oh, I'm this person who got dropped into this hellhole, and this was my experience, and then I die. I mean, it's got a very open and closed idea for a story there. And if anyone knows about that, then let me know. Post in the comments. You're saying that, I mean, if you look on the world forums, which I think you have to be a hero currently, but there is the Saloon, which is, it says the forum is reserved for discussion surrounding the Die2Nite universe, RP, or otherwise. But clicking in it, I don't really see much roleplay at all. Yeah. Just like people talking about stuff. But again, I think that that's probably because you do have a lot of free players, and a lot of those free players are just, I mean, there's 1 or 2 RP stories, but most of it is just like talking about the game. Yeah, and that's kind of disappointing because I'm not a big role player. I'm really not, but I do enjoy writing. I enjoy fiction, and this world seems ripe for role play and fan fiction because it's zombies, but it's such a unique take on the zombie idea that you'd think more people would be into it.
It's more a hellish landscape thing, kind of like how in Judge Dredd, outside of the cities are, just wiped out deserts and stuff, and that's kind of how this is more. It's not like I don't really like The Walking Dead, the TV series. I haven't enjoyed. I've tried. We just do not like it. It's just kind of cheesy. The way everybody's a cowboy, and it's just kind of a silly show. Yeah. But the way Die2Nite is I think how any other zombie, the landscape is wiped out, and instead people have instead of finding a city, they've kind of built these cities up in the middle of nowhere out of junk and stuff, which is pretty cool. It's kind of more like Mad Max, really, if you think about it.
Yeah, it's like post-apocalyptic with zombies, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know what the lore is. I've looked into it, I think, once or twice, and I think the trailer might tell you a little bit, but I like the fact that they keep it kind of ambiguous like that. You don't really quite know. Maybe there's a place to find out. I don't know. But the cool thing about, just a note on roleplay, is you don't have to, I don't know why people think roleplay has to be like thou, thus, this, or whatever. It can just be kind of talking like your character would talk. So I can roleplay in Die2Nite all the time because I just say stuff that, like, I won't say, hey, I gotta go to vacation. I won't be back for a day. I'll say, I got drunk and passed out in the wilderness or something. You just make up some RP thing. But you'll be amazed how many people don't know that you're role playing, even when you say something obviously role play.
Yeah, and I've had that happen before, and it's kind of funny in the forums that you have to kind of be careful, or you say to yourself, well, is this person being for real, or are they role playing, or are they just kind of crazy, or what's going on?
Did you lock your gates, by the way?
I don't.
How long you got?
We have 12 minutes right now. Because the first 2 days we didn't, but we had a bunch of. I'm a watchman tonight, and we had a bunch of watchmen, and I think they just killed everything that walked in. So we weren't locking our gates, but there was a threat about it.
What town is it?
What do you mean?
What's your name of your town?
We are the Uneducated River. And yeah, that's another cool thing. They have I guess it's just randomly generated names, but all the names of all the towns are really awesome. Like, they just have sometimes ridiculous, sometimes really kind of creepy, but they have very cool names for all the towns in this game. They're just basically random.
See, I don't know why, that town's not on the list. Maybe because it's already started.
Yeah, that could be it.
I don't know why that is. There's a hardcore town on there called Crowded Hypogeum. 18 citizens, but only 5 have coalesced. I'm not quite sure what the difference here is. I'd have to read about it, but it says right there, okay. But I am not playing in some hardcore town. I'm tempted to, just so people could be like, here's what we're gonna do, math and science and blah blah blah, and here's my table of contents with figures and max min max and stuff. I think I'll skip that, but one time I do want to try it just to see the experience, what I'm saying, see how bad they are.
Yeah.
They might be wonderful. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know either. I've seen the thing on there, but I haven't ever played in it because I just figured, hardcore, and you just see the word hardcore, and I'm like, I'll stick with the other thing. But I guess, there's no harm in trying it out. Maybe that'll be my next town.
This is how I am though with group games. Although, and I agree. I like to play MMOs for other people, but I just don't have the time necessarily to find other people a lot. So that's why I like Die2Nite. But I really enjoy being part of a team, not necessarily leading. I like to just jump in and say, hey, where do you need my help? Okay, I'll go grab that gun or whatever. I like to do that. So a hardcore town might be cool where they were just yelling at me all the time. That would be kind of fun.
Yeah.
There's only 2 out of 18 people. There's only 2 heroes. That's kind of weird. A bunch of free players.
I think hardcore, you kind of unlock the ability to go to those towns after you accrue a certain amount of soul points. So it's something you have to have played for a little while before you can do.
Huh. Yeah, I'll try it sometime. See how it's different. I like I said, I enjoy the collaboration between the citizens. I enjoy that whole feel. But it's like you said, it's sometimes it's wonderful and sometimes it's horrible. But that's kind of the beauty of it. I want to see them try some new, like the private towns, maybe sell a private town or something. But at the same time, I don't want it to lose that spirit of chaos. From what I understand, in the game, by the way, we were talking about shunning and stuff. If you get shunned, you don't really necessarily get kicked out of town. I think you lose some abilities, but you can continue to get shunned more, I think. But I need to look at it. Yeah, I think when I read about it, you actually are still in the town, but you can't take things out of the bank. And but they can hang you in the gallows.
Yeah, they can hang you eventually if you're shunned, which is kind of.
I don't know why anybody would build gallows. Any extra APs for that? I don't know that any town would ever waste the APs. Do you know what I'm saying? If they were that organized to actually want to kick somebody out, I don't know that they would ever actually be organized, or they would probably like, no, we're not wasting APs. I don't know how much the gallows cost though. You know,
I think I've only ever seen someone hung like once.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been shunned. We've tried to shun people before. I think the funner thing to do is to work behind the scenes and try to get them murdered, or something. Wait for them to become a ghoul, or just watch them deteriorate. Because almost every power player I've seen will eventually deteriorate. They'll kind of go crazy. They'll just, no, you didn't do it right. And they'll just keep screaming and screaming until their head explodes.
Yeah.
Have
you become a ghoul before? I haven't tried that yet.
No, I think it's just this last season. It's season 6, which is kind of their expansions or updates or whatever.
Yeah.
But basically, that last article I wrote, I received an email from a grumpy player, and in hindsight and tracking them down, it seems like this grumpy player was upset because they might have been one of the people I killed. I don't know. But they're saying you shouldn't have written that article because it wasn't factually right. You need to consult with a veteran player next time so you get your facts straight. And I said, I got all my facts straight. The only mistake I made was I changed, instead of putting action points for some reason at first, I put ability points or something like that on accident. Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I didn't even notice, and I corrected it to action points. And they were saying, no, a ghoul can't become infected. It's not through infection. And actually it is. If you read the help file about a ghoul, everything's infection. That's how you become a zombie. That's how you die a lot of times.
Yeah. And
so what you do is you can ingest like certain pieces of meat or whatever, and you might become this ghoul, which is kind of like a half zombie, half human.
Yeah, but nobody knows you're a ghoul, and that's what makes you dangerous, because you have to eat something every single day.
Do they not know? I didn't know that.
No, they don't know. I mean, I think maybe in like the Gazette, the little bird thing will say like, "Oh, you've got a ghoul in your town" or something.
Or
like
if you eat somebody, I believe that will tell everybody.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, this kid the ghoul in my town was on the forums saying, "Now look." And this was the weak point, because I didn't look up ghoul. I didn't know anything about it. I don't go searching the wiki for new stuff. I just log in and play, right?
Yeah, I do that too.
If he would have kept his mouth shut, he would have been perfectly safe. But he goes on the forum and he says, by the way, this player wasn't doing something. He passed out and so he went ahead and ate this player, and nobody argued. Everybody's like, all right, whatever. He wasn't doing anything anyway. He was just a useless player. Cool. And then he said, by the way, if any of you get like an idea that you want to kill me, don't, because I provide a lot of defense for the town. So I said, wait, why would he say that unless he could be killed easily? So I looked it up, and that's when I found that he could be killed. So I was like, you're dead.
Yeah. In one of my towns, the first town that I think that I played in this season where the ghouls were active, somebody was a ghoul, but nobody knew who it was. So a few people went through the ledger and kind of sleuthed it out and figured out, well, it can be this person, or this person, and they eventually narrowed it down, and that person got killed.
That's awesome.
But yeah, and actually in one town too, this person said, oh hey, I'm a ghoul, and they were acting really stupid on the forum, and so I thought, okay, well, if ghouls can be killed so easily, I'm gonna try and kill you. And I did, and they weren't a ghoul, they were just messing with people.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So
did you kill them though?
No, I wasted like 5 AP or whatever, and it did absolutely nothing.
Yeah, but what happened then? Did he say, hey, he tried to kill me, did it?
Yeah, he might have, but nobody, it wasn't a very organized town, so nobody really did anything. Okay.
It was every one of those towns, I get it. Alright, well that's cool. I like the mechanic. I think it's a cool new mechanic. It makes somebody, gives another reason for you to not trust your fellow citizens. I like all that stuff. The only problem is, like any game, anywhere, anytime, as long as everybody keeps, you can even get angry at me and yell at me or whatever, but just don't get insulting. Don't bring real life kind of stuff into it, or I'm going to do everything I can to get you kicked out or ban you or whatever. I mean, what I'm saying? That's my only problem with the game, is some people but they do, from what I understand, police their forums. You can't break certain rules. I don't think you could be racist and stuff. I've never seen anybody really do that, so.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So for the most part, people are pretty well behaved,
Yeah. Other than what you're saying, it's kind of a little too full of kids sometimes. Maybe it's.
But another thing is too, another interesting thing that kind of you'll see happen when over a game's lifetime, this happened with Die2Nite for sure, is people started coming up with rules that somehow you have to know, like for example, nobody spends points on building up their hovel to a blah blah blah, right? Everybody poo-poos on that.
Yeah.
But people are starting to talk about little things like that as though they're a rule of the game.
Yeah, and I have
it will literally confuse. Yeah, it will literally confuse new players. And I'm like, no, I build what I want. I do what I want. I typically don't build up my hovel and all that stuff unless it gets down to like 3 people or whatever it is. But those rules have to be crushed because those are those same rules that turn into like Final Fantasy 11, where you had to be of a certain class or you can't play it all. You know, these weird community rules where people will literally obey them like they're a game mechanic. It's like, no. So anytime I can break those rules, I try just to remind people they're not set in stone, you know, so.
Yeah, but I mean, what you're saying about the hovel, like that is, it may not be a game mechanic, but it is there's probably some kind of like psychological term for it, but it's one of those rules where it's not a formal rule, but it's like an informal one, I guess, and man, if you build a hovel, then you are pretty much just asking for it.
Yeah, but people have argued the other side of it. I've seen now a lot on the forums, people saying it's not the same as in season 1 and 2 and blah, blah, but
yeah.
Again, I think it has, I really believe this, it has something to do with younger or certain types of players who they're looking for a community to be a part of. And when you're young, you think, I'm going to be a punk rocker. So you join the punks and you realize, oh, I have to wear patches on my sleeve. And, you know, there's rules that you take on readily and eagerly without even necessarily agreeing with them because that's what you do in that group.
Yeah.
And I think online games do that. And so you're seeing that a lot in Die2Nite. People are like, oh my God, you broke this rule. And I'm like, there's no rule again. I can do what the hell I want, you know? And if the game allows me to do it, I'm going to do it if I want to.
And this is definitely a game where you can pretty much do whatever the hell you want. I mean, there will be community organized repercussions maybe, but the game still, the mechanics are there. It allows you to do that.
Cool. Okay. Well, I'll let you get to your town then. We need to work on getting a private town. And if I do, we could record like a daily, you know, who survived and who died, and you know, that would be kind of fun.
That would be really awesome. Yeah. All right. So I guess we'll wrap up here. So the game is Die2Nite. You can find it at Die2Nite.com. The developer's Motion Twin, and I'm Max. You can find me on YouTube at Max Castillo or Twitter at Max Castillo, all one word. This is the second episode. The first episode is still up there, so you should go listen to that too if you're into horror games. The game is home. And Bo, where can everybody find you?
Massively.com or droidgamers.com. I no longer work at games.com. Stepped out of that position because I'm getting a little overwhelmed and I have to do some other stuff. So a great site though if you're into social gaming at games.com. But so basically right now I write for Massively or I write for droidgamers.com, or you can find everything I do on boheinman.com. Twitter's at Bo_Heineman. All that stuff. In fact, Max, you've been doing this for like 18,000 years now, come to think of it, so I'm glad to see that you're doing like a podcast or whatever. It's cool.
Yeah, I finally, I have a lot of free time right now, so I finally got up on my butt and figured out something to do. So yeah, hopefully cool. I can keep up with this. The next, if anyone listening is interested, the next game is going to be we're going to do it, Jeremy's coming back, we're going to do it on a game called Lone Survivor. It's another, I don't want this podcast to turn into a horror game only thing, but that's the next game we're doing, so if you want to go and play that before you listen to it.
Is it a psychological survival adventure game? I'm looking at the website, I think.
Yeah, it's an adventure game. It's pretty much exactly that. I've already started playing it without getting too much into it. It is a very freaky and weird game. It cool. has been scaring the crap out of me. So without getting too much into it, I highly recommend you go play it and then listen to the next episode.
Cool.
Because we'll really dive into it. It should be a very interesting discussion.
Rock on.
All right. So I guess that's it, and we'll see you next time.
What does it take to get a drink in this place? What does it take? How long must I wait? does it take to get it